Yes, good evening, welcome back, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are, whoever you are, welcome to The Context. This is episode 2, if we're going to do it like that, but episode 1 here, episode 2 in general. And look, we've got more YouTube royalty. I spoke to some right YouTube royalty in the Spurs fan base this week, and Sean Butler, you're no different. How are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. I don't know what version of the royal family I am, but certainly not a king or a prince. I'm somewhere like the second cousin twice removed. But yeah, it's good to be back, mate. Good to have you. Good to see you, and good to be on the stream again. Welcome to the chat. Shout out to the chat. What are we talking about tonight? Oliver Glasner.
Well, do you know what? Listen, I always have done this ever since I've done YouTube. I've always thought, oh, will there be anything to talk about? And then it's Spurs. There's always something to talk about. I mean, look, tonight we're going to be covering. Look, obviously, when we spoke Tuesday, the Kulusevski information was, oh, he might be fit, he might not. And now we know he's not. Bergvall as one player of the year at Spurs. I want to talk about that because I've got certain opinions on that, as you can imagine. And then lots of reports today. I'm reading. Some sources are saying that it's Xavi. Other sources are saying that it's like we'll talk about the source you had done a video about, which was Glasner. And also, I've seen a really good report tonight coming out about that it might be, and I might be getting his name slightly wrong, but Farioli, who is the Italian coach at Ajax.
He just dropped the bollock in the league, right? He's completely just fallen off a cliff in the last 4 games.
Yeah, and
probably then last night over at Arsenal, right? He should probably, if they're used to bottlers over there, we'll see what happens.
Oh, dearie me. And if that's not enough, in the background, we got Charlton Athletic, who are just down the road, playing against Wickham in the second leg semi-final. The winners will play Leyton Orient and goalkeeping hero Josh Keeley in the penalty shootout last night. So let's keep an eye on that one. And Charlton are my second team. If I had one, it would be them. And big up Sam, yeah, the guy that told me the other day, the troll that came on and told me to shut up, #shut up. It's always good when a troll absolutely gets their insult wrong. I find it hilarious.
Yeah. You had one chance.
Yeah, and you only had to spell the word shut.
It wasn't even. You could have pressed delete. You could have just read your word before you.
Shut up. Big up, Sam. Guys and girls in the chat, you know where to find Sean. Please smash the subscribe button for him. Smash the subscribe button for me. 255 away now from 18K. Hopefully get there by Europa League final night. If not, we'll smash it on Europa League final night. Sean, before we get into anything, it's 6 days to the Europa League final. You are going. As the nerves set in, butterflies, are you excited yet? Or is it still a bit far away for that?
No, I keep playing it through in my head, right? Like I'm kind of going like in my mind, I can like almost envision like any number of 10 different outcomes where it could be a 0-0 stinkfest that goes to pens, and I don't know what happens. If we start badly, it could be an absolute disaster, and we could lose. Like we could be on the wrong end of like 3-0 down by half time or something. If it's one of those nights. Or I can also quite happily find myself like dancing around, lifting up, tinfoil trophies and that, pretending like I'm part of the team that's won it. And I think that Tottenham, even with all these injury problems, I still think that we can go and like sort of dominate. Like I just think that there's like every cloud's got a silver lining, Savva, and I almost feel like with all. Like, I know this sounds crazy, but the Bergvall news for sure is horrendous, right? Like, not having him fully fit is a big deal, big miss. The Decky thing, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't really know if the version of him that we've seen of late is a massive miss anyway. And I actually am maybe I'm just sort of like trying to make the best of a bad situation. But in my head, I'm starting to contemplate, is there some byproduct benefits of this? With regards like unpredictability and the fact that United won't know because we can't even as a fan base figure out who's going to be in our team, how we're going to play. Are we going to like go long from Pedro Porro and Romero, play it down into the channels? Are we going to go over the top for like Brennan Johnson? Are we going to draw them out and counter punch them? Are we just going to go and do some version of possession-based football because that's the model that's beaten them 3 times this season? And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that's actually quite valuable because there's precious time on the training ground between now and then for both teams. And I think we know how United are going to play. I think that's pretty much like predictable and obvious. And we can, I don't think there'll be any surprises there. But with Tottenham, I probably would lean that it's 70-30 going to be one way. But the fact that I'm not that confident about who's going to start, how we're going to go about it because of the Decky injury and the Maddison injury, I almost feel like there's a way you can spin it into being something like a small positive. Because I don't think Decky's that great anyway of late. And so I know you're going to show me the odds now that is it?
No. I was gonna lead on and ask you what you make. I mean, the bookies make Man United favourites. I'm guessing that's going to be a bit more to do with football heritage, no pun intended. I'm guessing that's going to be a bit more to do with their history and them having won major trophies. But I genuinely think if I was looking in at this and I wasn't a Spurs fan or a Man United fan, I'm looking in at this as a neutral, thinking I can't pick a winner. Like, I genuinely, again, remove the Spurs emotion and the Man United emotion. I'd genuinely be looking in going, they've both been really poor. Neither of them are in any sort of form going into this. Both managers under massive pressure. Both need the Champions League revenue. Both have a get out of jail free card waiting for them at the end of the Bilbao final. I genuinely don't know who I would pick if I wasn't a Spurs fan. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think most neutrals, looking at all those, what you just sort of outlaid there, most neutrals would probably fall back and say Tottenham have the better team, United have the better history, like you say. And I think that in big moments, United can be awful and find a way. So I think that the market is probably right in that they are slight favourites. But I do think it's a bit of a coin flip. And I think it's who has a good day, a good game on the night. It might come down to individual moments. Yeah, but like I say, I mean, I think that the most important players on the pitch for Tottenham, obviously you can say the back line or whatever, or the goalkeeper, but like just in a more sort of specific fashion, I think that Pedro Porro is our most important player on the night. And I would also make the argument that Destiny Udogie, for a different reason, is going to have to be extraordinarily clever with how he uses the space, because there'll be space behind Dallo, will it be? Dallo. And I think that there's just going to be, I think that it's going to be dogged and boring. It's going to be a stinkfest. It won't be on any kind of like top 10 all-time Europa finals, almost like the Liverpool game 5-6 years ago. It won't be memorable. But for me, I think if Pedro Porro is on point, and like I say, just the fact that there's a bunch of different, like, if you had Decky, it's obvious how you're going to go about it, but he hasn't been very good. He hasn't been very good.
He hasn't
really
for a
bad.
long time.
For a long time, right?
Do you know what he is, Sean, with Decky? I think he is one of those, and without stating the obvious, there are certain players that they can get away with being a little bit unfit. You know, I don't think Decky is one of them. I think Decky is one that needs to be 100% fit at it mentally, physically.
WD-40 on all his joints, like, needs to be entirely optimized, and need a MOT every 5 minutes with his body, sort of thing.
Agreed, because he's not it's strange because it's almost like he's got a really good engine in terms of work rate, but he's not mobile. And I've always said, and people have a go at me, I've always said I like Decky, but I think that mobility is, for me, what stops him being that next level to what he actually is. And when he's been playing this last month, I think he's played like the last 7 games, not all 90 minutes, but he's looked like a player that's been rushed back. He's looked like a player that is just not ready for first team football. So
I think he almost, people say he's got 4 lungs or whatever, or 3 lung Decky or whatever, right? Where he's got this motor engine. Obviously there's a truth to that, but I also think he goes far too hard in the first half of the season. I don't think he left much in the tank. It's like the guy who swims halfway across the lake, and then doesn't leave enough to get back, and like, I think that's like, I think he needs to manage his minutes a bit better. And again, that comes down to a manager as well that can do that for him, because if you leave it up to the players, they always say they're fit. And I'm really a little bit worried about, I know that, but it was kind of poo-pooed, I say that Bergvall, not to get off the topic, but Bergvall's the sort of player that probably is going to do everything he can. And if asked the question by Ange, are you fit? Or are you in any way fit? He'll say yes when he probably isn't. And what I don't want to do is create an injured, if he has if whatever he's got wrong with him, if he then forces it, even though he'll have a stinkfest on the night, I'm actually more worried about creating a recurring injury in a young player. You don't want a 19-year-old to then have a double ACL or what? Was it an ACL that he got? What I forget. What did he get? And it was an ankle injury, wasn't it?
I can't remember exactly, but you're right. Listen, I don't think, especially going into a final, you don't want, listen, the players are important. We can't just say, oh, it's a final, just play. And if he gets injured, well, he's going to be injured for all of the summer and he's spending rehab. I just don't think that's right. But look, I mean, let's talk. Let's use that to move on to our first subject. Lucas Bergvall. Lucas Bergvall has been, for me, the only youngster that's come in and really staked a claim. And to be fair, he's the only youngster for me that Ange has actually given a chance to in his position. I know that Gray admirably filled in, but there's a huge difference between, hey, Sean, could you do this? But you're actually this. For me, without being negative, and I like him, I think he's going to be a very good player. I think that him getting the Spurs Player of the Year kind of shows the year we've had, right? That there's no standout, because I think he's done well. I think he's blossomed. But for me, I don't think I've seen anything where I go, oh my God, you were our best player. Kind of sums up the season for me. Is that fair? Is that a bit harsh?
No, look, how many, imagine if the Premier League team of the season, right, had an A team, B team, C team, D team, E team. How many letters down the alphabet do you need to get to before Bergvall makes a team as a midfielder in the Premier League team of the season?
Yeah. Far down. Yeah, far down.
The fifth team, maybe? Sixth team? I don't know. like miles down, right? And so if he's our player of the season, I think that tells us. I mean, the season's been an absolute stinker, isn't it? So, it's no surprise that it's the best of a bad bunch. He certainly is a really good player. Certainly is someone that I think is going to go on. Same as you, I echo those thoughts. I think he's going to go on to big things. But that's another reason why I really don't want him to be playing, bigger picture stuff. Because what you don't want to do is ruin a kid with young injuries. Like we've seen what Mickey van der Ven, he's going to be a recurring hamstring every season. He's going to be out. Look at Ryan Sessegnon. Like the amount of not that Ryan Sessegnon's in the same kind of conversation, but just generally speaking, the amount of players that get an injury young and then it keeps going. And if you kind of force the issue for the purposes of one game, when actually, like I said, I'm kind of coming to terms with the idea of having a bit of a bully midfield. If you maybe want to go with like Bentancur, Bergvall, and Sarr, and that their purpose is just to nullify the Manchester United's midfield and make it a bit of a brute force kind of evening, and then Tottenham look for their opportunities by going over the top with Romero pumping it long into the channel or Pedro Porro putting it long into the channel, then I think that you can still create enough opportunities with knockdowns, flick-ons from the likes of Solanke and Richarlison into the path of Sonny or like a Udogi, something like that. I think that there's enough ammo there for me to still cause problems. So I'd rather not force Bergvall into a team or even onto the bench unless he's 100% fit, and he can't possibly be. So I think this one just has to. Unfortunately for him, he's going to miss out on the biggest game of his young career. But I'm sure he'll have plenty more opportunities in the years to come. Maybe not for Tottenham, but somewhere.
Absolutely. Listen, I agree with you. And by the way, I think it's a really good point, Ridwan. We will talk about this a bit later because I know as Spurs fans, we only talk about the injuries we've got. But Man U have got a long list of injuries as well. Man U's is very much in the defensive area of the pitch. Ours is very much in the offensive. So it could kind of level out.
Stinkfest coming, 0-0.
Yeah. We'll get to that later, but I do think it's going to be a real stinker of a game. But we'll see. Listen, I take your point. I think if you were going to look at and say how many people in the Premier League have been better than Bergvall, there's going to be loads. For me, I just think nothing against the lad. I just think it's a real sad indictment that a player that didn't really force himself into the team until about January or February has won the award. And I think it goes to show that no one's really grabbed the ball by the horns this year. I think we've seen some good months from Maddison, some good months from Vicario, some good months from Spence, some good months from Porro, from Decky, but nothing consistent. Look, Sean, for me, I want to ask you about Jed Spence, because there were people during that spell, I think it was kind of January, February, March time. He came in, everyone was going, oh my God, Jed Spence, look at this is our best defender. And, where's he been? And And it almost seems as though when everyone came back fit, there were those saying, well, Udogie is going to have to fight for his place. And it was the complete opposite. He didn't. He just came straight back in. Do you think that's killed Jed Spence's confidence? Because when I see him play now, he doesn't look like the guy we were seeing that was playing every week and playing really well with confidence. Has he checked out and he's, I don't know, you know what I'm saying with that whole situation?
Yeah, listen, I think there's a couple of stories there. I think that Jed Spence is one. And don't forget that Ange Postecoglou took the credit for somehow he managed to spin the whole Jed Spence revolution into his grand plan. Is part of the grand plan, Ange, the fact that you're disdain for him, that you used him until Udogie was back, and the second he's back, you dumped him off to the like your kind of your side bitch or whatever you want to call it, right? And I just think that it's there's a problem there. Like Ange doesn't know how to motivate and manage. I was saying this on Irish Hotspur earlier. The manager, the guy's name escapes me again. Rafa Benitez was known for rotation, right? Even to the point sometimes where it would be to the detriment in certain games, especially at Everton. But he said it's necessary because it's difficult to keep 26 players motivated if you've only got one game a season. So you keep them all on the spin. And I think that Ange Postecoglou hasn't figured that out, right? Like he tried to take credit for Bissouma's resurgence and said, "Look, I called out Bissouma, and then I said to Bissouma, look, I know we had a words or whatever, but I'm going to need you when it matters most, so please be ready." And to be fair to Bissouma, he's been pretty good in the last few games, so it's kind of worked there. But it's that same man management skill set, if you want to call it that, hasn't worked with Archie Gray. Archie Gray's confidence has completely fallen because he was used and abused, right? Chucked away at the end of his nest. As soon as Romero and Van de Ven came back, Archie Gray wasn't needed anymore, so never got another minute until the Liverpool game. Jed Spence used until Udogie come back. You can't treat your rotation especially when you're doing 2 games a week. That maybe the reason why you say to Tottenham fans via the media, what do you expect? You know, if you don't understand by now that we can't compete on 2 fronts because of the Europa League, given the injuries, then I don't know what to tell you. Write your headlines. Well, maybe you would be able to, because by the way, you built this squad. This squad is 80% your squad, right? Like you've had 26 players coming in and out in the last 2 years. So this is largely your squad. So you signed off on it. If you're now saying that we can't expect anything more than a loss in the league if we ever go deep in a competition,
right?
Then I don't know what that's telling me. You're definitely not the guy, but maybe it wouldn't have had to be that way if you had a little bit more decency in the way that you managed some of these players like Jed Spence, because I do think that Jed Spence has fallen off a cliff. I do think it's largely because he feels like he's been used and abused. At the same time, though, I'm not laying all of that at the feet of Ange, because at the end of the day, you are a professional. You shouldn't need to be motivated. You are like, he still could stake a claim to get into that team. If something did happen to Udogie in an injury, like maybe tomorrow night, God forbid, then you'd need Jed Spence to be on form. And so he managed to motivate himself when he got his chance. And then as soon as it was taken away and then given back to him, he just felt like, now this is all paying lip service. I think that it's a combo here. That some of these players need to kick up the backside themselves. But as a manager, you're managing people. That's your job. You are managing people, right?
Just to play devil's advocate on that, Sean. Let's play devil's advocate on that. I completely agree with you. You know, for me, I don't like this idea that, oh, poor me, I'm on 100 grand, 70 grand a week, and you know, I need to be motivated. I mean, that's first of all, that's your motivation. Listen, we all get up and do a job. We all feel unmotivated, but we all need to get paid. But on the flip side of that, it did show, didn't it, that Jed Spence, right, listen, a player gets injured, come in, take your chance. And I think he did take his chance. He did. He came in, he was our best player for a period of 2-3 months. And then as soon as Udogie came back, he's out. And you must be a little bit like, well, what's the point? Like, hang on, I did really well. And I get it. Like, you're going into these weekend games thinking, well, it doesn't matter how well I do. So I see both sides of it. I just feel a bit for Jed Spence. I thought he did well. And
would his now have dropped off had he kept his place?
Well, I mean, that's the answer, isn't it? Because Jed Spence, for me, I think he is our best defensive fullback. Defensive wise, I think he is.
Yeah.
But listen, I mean, it's not like justice for Jed Spence or anything. But with that in mind, everything that's happened, do you see him being here? Because if I'm his agent, I'm going, Jed, we can get you a move. You've shown enough this season. We could get you a move.
If Ange stays, no, he wants out. I think that'll be the case for a lot of people, for what it's worth. I think that there's there's been a constant rolling out of players to give like plaudits to the manager to create this like, he's not as bad as the media say he is or whatever. I'm paraphrasing, but like, no, that we're all behind him. But I don't think they are. I don't think they are. I think they're like, what are we doing? They've been told to say that, right? Like, of course they have. It's all like media management or whatever. But like, I just think that Jed Spence and maybe Archie Gray. I think there's probably like, 2 or 3 other people that are not part of Ange's favourites. Because I think Ange has got like 15 players that he considers to be his squad. Agreed. And the others are used when needed, not when wanted, right? And I think within that 10 or so that are Mikey Moore might be in that bucket. When there's a few players that are in that bucket of people that are not necessarily used as much as they could have been. And I think some of them, if Ange does stay, God help us, but if he does, I think that that there'll be a few players that will put their hands up for transfers. Well, I'd love to know what you think he's worth.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, he's going to be worth more than he probably should be because of his nationality. Let's put that straight out there. I think he goes and does a good job for somebody, and I think you're probably looking at 30, 35. I reckon, again, in English tax.
Definitely not 40 million. Definitely not 40 million yet. But yeah, I'd like 30, 35 million. I think is probably right. But where do you go to get? Because we already need another fullback, don't we, mate? We already need you definitely need someone that can depends on what you look at. The thing is, Jed Spence is also versatile, right? He can play on both sides. So I don't want to see him go. I want to see another manager come in and utilize him better.
Agreed.
Trial things and figure it out, because fullbacks are the most important. I think they're the most important position in most football teams, because if you've got a manager that likes to pivot from a fullback to a wingback system when you have to, then that position is so necessary. It either creates the width or it can block the back post. There's so much intricacy and specificity in the role that they're hard to find. And we have 3 fullbacks that are handy. We need a 4th. We just need a manager that uses them better.
Yeah. I mean, I think this has been half the problem, isn't it? I mean, this is why I think when a lot of people talk to me about injuries and stuff, I always say, well, hang on, before we got the injuries, Ange Postecoglou did not rotate in any way, shape or form. And this was part of the big problem for me. There were games where, Van der Ven's injury prone. We know it. Everyone knows it. He's played something like 40% of games available to him since he's joined Tottenham Hotspur. Like, it's madness. Romero, something like 55, 60% of games available. You've got Destiny Udogie, who started the season after having a major operation at the end of last year, right? That's the time for me where you're going, right, Jed, here you go. You're playing today. Destiny, you've played a game. Listen, sit out midweek, rest up. But he didn't do it. And then it meant when the injuries did come, all of a sudden we're going, oh, these backups aren't very good. And it's like, whoa, hang on. Well, Jed Spence is good. We see Jed Spence was good. We did see players that came in and did well. My worry is, again, if he stays next year, what is his rhetoric going to be, Sean? Because last season, and this is my biggest gripe with this manager, last season was, we're not playing enough games. Right? We're not playing enough games. I can't keep the consistency going. There's too big a gap in between. Then in the summer, things
too many games.
Like, he says things like, Solanke's the guy I wanted. We've been chasing him all season. I'm glad to get him over the line. Right? Things like that. Then he says, I don't want 4th. We're not targeting 4th. We're challenging. With the squad we've got, we should be challenging. Now, but we're playing too many games. And, well, sorry, Mr. or Mrs. Reporter, but we've lost 20 games in the league because we're in Europe. And let's rewind. You weren't saying that, mate. So what's the rhetoric next season if he stays? And let's say you've got Champions League football, Sean. Are we just throwing every league game again?
Dude, he can't stay. Like I say, I used to be like, I used to be someone that would like I'd fall out of love with him on the weekend, and then I'd fall back in love with him when I'd hear his like, his press conferences. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I was like, I can get swooned by that guy. Like he's he knows how to say the right words in the right order to keep you on side. But after a while, when the amount of excuses that you've heard, the justifications for prior mistakes that end up, or the dismissiveness, the denials of what, you think it's this, it's not this, it's this, it can't be that because of, and then you go, well, if that's true, then this is also true. And then
yeah.
that's even worse, if I'm entirely honest, than what that was. So like, I'd rather know that you were training and that you were overtraining because you think it's necessary and the injuries were a byproduct of that. I go, okay, well, just learn your lesson and stop doing it. But if you're saying, nah, we don't even train anymore. So I go, well, what? So we're changing our tactics. We're experimenting to a back three without any practice on the pitch. That's even worse, bro.
Yeah,
Like every other manager's got enough time to do back three, back four, opposition SWOT analysis, watching the tape. Yet you don't, because you just, after the Ipswich game, 18 months in, he said, I don't want to like focus on these losses in isolation because right now it's more important about getting the message embedded. Bro, you've had 18 months to say that message, right? And it's one message, which is like rinse and repeat. If there's something wrong with the message, bro, something very wrong. And so like after a while, I've just become like very numb to his words, and now I see them as like transparent opportunities to distance himself from accountability, to the point where now he's just run out of excuses, and now he just tells the interviewer that they're stupid if they don't understand what's really going on here. Like, I think you're treating people like they're fucking idiots, mate. If I'm entirely honest.
Yeah, I think as well, what he's got to remember is, this is the man that during the injuries turned around and said, we know what we're doing. When the injuries come back, you're going to see, I can't remember the exact word, but I think it was a real describing, it was a real adjective, it was like, like, you're going to see remarkable improvement or something like that. If anyone in the chat knows.
A palpable change. Yeah.
And then when you see one win in 10, suddenly, well, what do you expect? Well, I don't know, because 10 games ago, you told us we were. So for me, I just want to see a clear, consistent message from this guy. And it's too much. I don't know who he is anymore. I feel like we had the really fun, jovial, everyone loves me. It's great when we haven't lost for 10 games at the beginning of the season. Since then, this is amazing. Hula hoops and skips. That's amazing. Thank you very much. Nice. Yeah, needed. Hello, Stewie. And
I think
now it's just a real sinister. You're all stupid. You're all idiots because you don't understand why we've lost 20 games. Well, hang on. Bayern Leverkusen got to the Europa League final last year. They went unbeaten in a league season. So, like
Aston Villa got to the semi-final of one cup, the quarterfinals of another, and are still in fourth spot or fifth spot in the Champions League, right? And this is a team we're supposed to be bigger and better than, and our squad probably they've got maybe a better squad than us right now, but they certainly haven't for the like they were in the Championship 4 years ago. It's like I share your people always say to me, like, I watch the comments on when I go on neutral channels, and they're like, oh, Sean, you're spending too much time with Johnny and Savva and Henry. You become really like being negative.
We get blamed for everything. We get blamed for everything.
I know, yeah.
Are you Ange out? Oh, you must have been watching Football Heritage TV, because Savva's the only person in the world that doesn't like Ange.
No, it's madness. Like, I think the comments don't ever bother me, but I'm always curious to know, because when you just look at your own comments on your own channel, obviously you've cultivated an audience, people that generally obviously appreciate you, maybe, right? And so you're not going to necessarily get the best barometer of how you're received if you're just looking at the comments from your own videos. Whereas you go and, like, I went on We Are Tottenham TV yesterday. It was so funny, man. Like the comments after that show.
I was going to ask you, because someone said here, FC said, and I starred it because I wondered. He said Sean was right what he said to Sim. What did you say?
He's the one guy, mate. It was the debate was obviously mainly about Ange, right? And how do we deal with Decky and stuff. It was a great show. Really enjoyed it. It was respectful. It was like the chat was funny. Like the content was funny, or fun to participate in. But I've just basically, I said on that what I basically said there, right? Like, essentially that I just think that Ange is a salesman, and I see through it now. And I said that I used to be balanced to the point where I'd be like, I can understand giving him the next season on a meritocracy basis if he wins a cup, because he's done something that's quite unique and very rare in Tottenham's history. So on the merit, method, I think that you could understand it. I don't really want to be on board it, but I can understand it. Whereas now, over the last 6 weeks, I've kind of violently shifted towards, I've had enough of this geezer. I hope he does well. I'm rooting for him on Wednesday and the team, but after that, I'd love to just part company. And the comments, and so Sim went on his defensive Ange and all that stuff. Like he's sort of,
doesn't he? He loves him.
No, I think it's a little bit. I think there's some truth to it, but I think that he also, he's just dug himself into that trench, and now he's, like no one wants to kind of get out of the trench once you're in it, right? But, sure. The comments in the chat there was like 3 types of comments, right? One is Sim is deluded, Sim's an absolute nightmare, I'm leaving this channel. Poor bloke getting all the heat. Yeah. Or Sean is an utter insert whatever expletive you want there.
Yeah.
And the third one was like, just basically shut up and get behind the team. So there was like very little. It was very binary, right? You're either and like it's just either Sim's a legend, Sean's a complete prick if they're Ange lovers, or you get some people that are like that just don't like me because of the Levy thing or whatever. Like, so then there's those people that would just go against me. It's just like when you step out.
But those people that don't like you, those people that don't like you, or those people that don't like me, they don't even want to hear what comes out our mouth. They just go, "Oh, that's that guy that said that." No,
Yeah.
What I love about YouTube is like something I heard the other day. Somebody went into a chat the other day and said, "Oh, have you seen what Savva said?" And I think, oh, Jesus Christ, give it a rest. Like Savva said, like Simon says, Savva said, Spurs. That should be the name of a show. Savva said, the Spurs should have put out a best 11 against Crystal Palace, right? Now, the response from the host was, that's because he wants us to lose the Europa League final. And I'm like, wow, that's a huge jump from me saying we should have gone stronger. I didn't say all of them, like Van de Ven, wrap that boy up. Yeah. Some of the others, play them. They need minutes in the legs. So it's gone from we should have gone stronger to this is why he doesn't want to win the Europa League. And I'm like,
they throw the baby out with the bathwater because it's just easier just to categorize you as something, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, and I've been the one that said, Sean,
part of the game,
Sean, of course it's part of the game, but Sean, I've said, I know people never actually take the time to listen to me because I'm so adamantly Ange out. My love for Tottenham is greater than my dislike for any player or manager or owner, right?
Of course, yeah.
Equally, I've gone and said, if I remove, if let's say I'm a made of stone, right? I'm a heartless bastard. Forget my emotion for Tottenham. We have to win it. I can't say this more over the last 6 months. We have to win this for revenue, for attracting a manager, for attracting play. We keeping players. Yeah. We have to win this. But no, Savva doesn't want to win it. I'll even be more shameless, Sean. I'll be more shameless than that. We have to win this because I lose revenue as a YouTuber if we're in less games next season. Right? So it's true, right? So when people are saying to me, you don't want to win it, I'm like, are you nuts?
You know what it is, though, Sav? You know what it is, mate? I said this, I don't know if I said this to. I think I said it to Johnny. I was like, Savva has carved himself. I don't think he appreciates what he's done. Because I know that you just spend a lot of time, the comments and that and whatever. But I think you've carved yourself out a phenomenal slice of the action. Because if you're right, or when you're right about certain things, when we lose and you go, it's your manager, I told you, then you get the people that come in and go, yeah, Savva's spot on because you were right about this, that, and the other. And when we win, or when things go against your narrative, you get probably as many people that want to come in and just to call you a CUNT, right? So like, you got views either way, bro. It's a brilliantly carved out narrative. It's a brilliantly carved out slice of the pie, to be honest.
You know what? Since I've been on YouTube and the bigger I've got, the CUNT word is just normalized now. Like it doesn't offend. Like it's like at first I'd be like, oh wow.
I think it's a term of endearment, to be honest.
Yeah, be like, wow, this person thinks I'm a CUNT. Now it's someone else has called me it. Like I've been called a paedophile. I've been called a drug addict. I was called a drug addict live on a show the other day. And I'm like, I've never even tried a drug. Like, can we at least get half right. But anyway, look, we
Have you
digress.
never
We
tried a drug?
digress.
Really? Never had a drug in your
No,
life?
no, never. The alcohol was always my always my thing. But look, I do find it interesting because look, I feel like there's a lot of nuance that can be had. I feel like people can understand that just because you dislike somebody, by the way, it's not personal. I don't dislike Ange as a human. He's just not my type of person as a manager and the way he comes across. People don't understand you can have that, but still want your football club to do the best. And I was on another show this morning where somebody said to me, and it was interesting. It said, isn't it funny that those that want managers and players out that aren't very good are always called negative, as opposed to anyone looking at it and saying, well, hang on, aren't you positive because you actually want better for your club? I was like, yeah, but the world don't work like that, right?
Yeah,
The
no, but
world don't work like that.
I think at the same time, and this certainly I'm not putting you in this bucket, but there is generally, I'll say it 1,000 times, right? Like it's far easier to predict the losing lottery numbers than the winning lottery numbers, right? So it's I think it goes with the territory. I think there's definitely some content creators in the football space generally, across any channel or whatever. And it's not just that. It's in politics, in whatever, right? Where it doesn't matter what the reality is, people will find problems with it because the likelihood is in life that if you lean towards negative, you're probably going to be right because life is tough, right? And you have far more failures than you do successes in anything, in any topic, no matter what it is. And so if you're someone that always wants to find a problem with the reality and then also at the same time attach yourselves to solutions that are incredibly unlikely to become real, then you can always hide behind, well, my solution is over here and I'm rooting for something that won't actually manifest, right? And so I think there is an element of people that want to be right and so lean wrong, if that or lean
Sure.
lean that
Sure.
way.
I've always thought I'm somebody. I just say it as I see it, and it's not
Yeah.
always a popular opinion. I love this. This is a great comment. I just don't like Savva's love for Aston Villa.
I don't like your love for Aston Villa, if I'm entirely honest, mate. Never have.
I don't. Do you know what it is? I'm jealous. I'm jealous of what Aston Villa have managed to do in such a short space of time and the trajectory that they're going on. That's what it is. I want their manager. I want their director of football. I want to be signing players like they're signing in transfer windows. So I don't love them, but it goes to show that when people are telling me, oh, well, we're Tottenham, we can't do that. I'm like, well, hang on. They got promoted 5-6 years ago from the Championship. So
5 years ago, yeah.
I don't love them. I'm just
that trajectory they've been on is wildly aggressive, you know.
Yeah.
But it remains to be seen. I always like, you know, the kind of the people that are like, yeah, just wait for the 98% thing to catch up to them. You already know what's going to happen in the summer. Like, I guarantee you, I'll be in the mud, but I'll a £10 bet to charity. I'm sure you wouldn't take it because I'm sure you probably agree that there's going to be bids coming in for people like Emi Martinez to go to Saudi, right, and Bailey to go to Saudi, like, and there'll be overinflated prices because I think that there's a lot of back scratching between certain clubs and certain entities, and they'll figure out a way to financially move the goalpost in the right direction. Plus, for what it's worth, they did very well in the Champions League, so they've got some decent revenue coming in. But they are a club that's in the right. But they're moving in the right circles, and they've got themselves some decent relationships that they can lean into when needed to continue their trajectory without having to really worry about those rules.
And Sean, they've got Tottenham Hotspur tomorrow night, and then Man United after the final to secure Champions League football again. So that will just strengthen them further. But listen, I don't love them. I'm jealous of them. I'm not going to lie. I'm jealous of them. I'm jealous of Newcastle.
I hate Aston Villa. I don't know. I like Newcastle, but I hate Aston Villa mainly because of that. It all started with me and you and Henry on Henry's show. But then ever since then, there's the Matty Cash thing, taking out two of our players, Bentancur and Højbjerg and Bentancur. There's the fact that they didn't want to reschedule their game. It just feels like quietly Aston Villa Tottenham's becoming a rivalry, and I kind of I hate them. I hate them, and therefore I hate anyone that talks well about them.
Look, I agree. And Jason, when you're saying we've done what Villa are crying about now, though, and better actually, I mean, I guess you're talking about the Poch era, but you've got to remember that, again, this will sound like I love them. You've got to remember Unai Emery's been there 2.5 years, picked them up when they were in 17th. And he is 2 games away from back-to-back Champions League finishes. That's unheard of at Aston Villa. So anyway, look, enough about Aston Villa. Let's talk about you found an interesting little article today, didn't you? I saw you posting.
Yeah,
I haven't got social, but it got sent to me. Do you want to talk about it? You want to tell us what it was?
Well, yeah, so I've got the quote. So there's this guy called, I have to write his name down again, Klaus Reutinger, who I hadn't heard of, but apparently he's like quite a big deal in Austrian football. I think there's a stadium named after him. I think he's like a Ralf Rangnick or something, but on a coaching level. I don't know if anyone knows who Klaus Reutinger is, then let me know. But essentially, he was Oliver Glasner's like mentor, his first major coach or whatever back in the day. And he was quoted in the Austrian Sky Sports or something. And the quote was, I've got it in front of me. He said, he's one of the best in the industry. He's talking about Glasner. Oliver has a clear line, and in every respect, human and sport, he knows how to win the team over and to convey the processes perfectly to his team. First, it goes into the heads of the players and then in the legs. That's why it always takes a little time for everything to work. He made incredibly courageous decisions and ultimately prevailed everywhere. His coaching career has never had a crease. This is very unusual. With every club, they feel a certain longing for him when he is gone. That was the case with LASK in Wolfsburg and also at Frankfurt. I honestly can't imagine that he's going to Leipzig. I rather appreciate and believe he will land at Tottenham this summer. You're on mute. You're on mute. All right. Still on mute. Sean, got control. Sean,
Sorry, I'm on mute. Sorry. Yeah. So Klaus Reitmeier is a German football coach and former player. And that's about all I've got. 61 years of age. He was at Blackburn as a player, apparently, in 1990, but didn't make an appearance. Look, I'll be honest. I'd love that. I think, do you know what? You know me. I love a coach. I love a coach. I like man-to-man managers. I like people that can put their arm around the shoulder and say, listen, you know what? Stick with me. I'm going to make you better. And if we actually look at this Crystal Palace team, I think he's made so many of them better. So many of them better. They're a well-functioning, well-oiled, well-drilled football team. And when we talk about, we've got players that say, oh, well, we lost Kane. It's like, well, sure, but other teams lose their version of Kane. Crystal Palace lost Michael Olise in the summer, who was a huge player for them. Crystal Palace lost Joachim Andersen. Crystal Palace in the January window lost Chalobah, who they thought they had all year on loan. And managers like him, managers like Frank that loses Watkins and Tony and Raya, they find solutions. They coach. They find solutions with players that might not be as sexy, if you will, might not be as well known. Silva's another one. Lost Mitrovic, who was their Kane, if that makes sense. He was their goal scorer. They find solutions.
Palhinha.
And Palhinha. And they lost Anderson before he went back.
Would you take Palhinha, by the way, this summer? Sorry, not to get off the topic, but
because he's out of favourite Bayern.
He's not. He's leaving Bayern at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bayern Munich owe us money. Would you say keep Matisse Tell? We'll take Palhinha instead.
That if you turn around and said, right, keep the Kane money, we're going to have Palhinha straight away, we're getting 15 to 20 points more next season because we've got a proper top number 6
100%.
who knows the Premier League.
100%.
There you go.
100%. So, I'm a fan of Batista. I know no one else is. I like. I said this the other day on my show with you. I don't know how to justify it other than like just I feel it.
If you like him, you like him.
Yeah, I like him. But the stats don't support my narrative. So I hear the argument is difficult to sell, but there's something about him. But I also take on board the fact that we do have a lot of options in that regard. Johnny keeps banging on about Manor Solomon. He wants to see Manor Solomon back. I don't know about Manor Solomon. I don't think, he's like, yeah, but he scored 20 goals, 20 GA in the I was like, yeah, the championship, right? The championship. He's like, no, he got 2 assists for Tottenham against Burnley. I was like, yeah, they were a team that were in the championship that came up and went straight back down again. So like, there's levels to this game. But anyway,
I think there's a lot of other factors at play with. I don't want to get into it, but there's a lot of other factors at play with Solomon. And let's be fair, Daniel, this is a dream for Daniel Levy and any chairman, if we're going to be brutally honest. Bringing a player on a free, and 2 years later, if Leeds come in and go 18, 20 million.
Yeah.
And I've got nothing wrong with that, by the way. I won't have a go at Levy for that because that is pure profit.
Yeah.
That's good 100%. Business. But you're right, Sean. If Spurs if you turn around and said to me, right, Xavi is coming in, for example, For, I say from Barcelona, he's free. If Xavi comes in and you said, right, Xavi, the first player we're giving you is Palhinha, right?
Yeah.
Xavi comes from the school of thought where every team has that guy that sits at the base
100%.
and he played with Busquets. He did it himself. He played with Pep. He's played with Marcos Senna for Spain, right? Xavi will go, brilliant. Okay, I've got that guy. I can work with Bergvall. He's a really good technical player. I only need one more, or I might make Maddison that. Straight away, you go, that looks nice. That looks balanced.
Palhinha transforms Tottenham.
I agree.
Transforms, because our midfield stinks at the moment with the square pegs and round holes in a system that doesn't make sense anyway. But it doesn't matter. People going, well, you can't make any signings until you know who the manager is. I'm like, well, there are certain positions that I don't give a shit who the manager is. We need to improve on. And a 6 has been that role since before Conte. We haven't had a 6 that's been good enough. Højbjerg was the last one that was competent. But even if Højbjerg had an extra half a yard of pace, he would have been top drawer. But, he didn't. So he wasn't.
Look, Palhinha has played 17 Bundesliga games this season and 24 in all competitions. I would bring him in, stick him in front of a back four, and straight away, just imagine. I'll tell you what, imagine how happy the back four will be. And they go, oh, we signed Palhinha.
God, yeah.
Thank you. Oh my God, thank you.
100%.
It would be amazing. But again, the Ange philosophy doesn't allow for an out-and-out number 6. So for me, I agree with you, but I've said all along, I think Paratici is already signed, sealed and delivered. I think he is probably talking to, I reckon a manager is probably done or nearly done. And I reckon they're probably talking to players. I reckon they're drawing up a shortlist. Even if you say to Bayern, give us Palhinha on loan for a year with an option to buy for me, transforms Tottenham.
There's I was doing this show earlier and we were looking at defensive midfielders, right? And I landed on it. There's a player that's, I think, will be all over the transfer links this summer. Where is he? Samuel Ricci at Torino, right? 23 years old, so he fits the profile. A DM, so he's what we need. He's a really, really good player. And obviously with the Paratici links in Italy and Torino and all that stuff, there's that as well. And on top of that, guess who's his agent?
Someone like Paratici's friend.
CAA base, right? Which Tottenham have got 20 players on. So to me, I think if we're looking for a DM this year, like Samuel Ricci will be all over and he should be. He's a good player. I take him. He's 23 as well, right? So he's like one that fits the profile. But in terms of just you've got money, you don't have money, we're cash poor, Bayern owe us a fortune. We've already got 5 wingers. If someone said to me, Sean, do you like Matisse Tell? Yes. Would you rather have Matisse Tell or would you rather have Palhinha? All day long, go and get me Palhinha, right?
Absolutely.
And then that's it. And that doesn't. You can do that now, by the way, because he's got a house in London already. He didn't sell when he left Fulham, right? So he knows London. He's got a base here. He's got friends here, no doubt. To me, it just makes so much sense, and it improves us exponentially. And you can make a deal with Bayern so that there's no cash that needs to change hands or very little. And then all you got to do is go and figure out, what do you do in the, with one, obviously a fullback you need, and then, forgetting about Romero for a second, and then you just need either an all-round forward or a 9 like a Jonathan David, and that's a really, really good start to the transfer business. And you don't need a director of football to make that happen. You don't need a new manager. Like every manager would rather have Palhinha than what we currently have.
I just don't think Ange would. I think Ange wouldn't. Do you know what? I don't think it's that Ange wouldn't.
Do you actually think what percentage chance do you give to Ange being here next year?
No. I agree. I give him 1%. But what I'm talking about is in general. I think that Ange, if he was given a Palhinha, wouldn't know what to do with him because Ange wants everybody hectic, running around like crazy. Palhinha is going to go, I don't do that. That's not my game. I've seen this Samuel Ricci play, and I'll tell you what, this is, again, take this with a pinch of salt, but under his style of play on Wikipedia, I like what I hear. I've seen him play. only once or twice, but it says Ricky is a right-footed player, mainly deployed as a playmaker in front of the defence or as a midfielder. Gifted with excellent individual technique and sense of positioning, he is regarded as one of the most important prospects in Italian football. His reference model is Andrea Pirlo.
Wow. Yeah.
Again, I think that's a dying art. Somebody, listen, and we always use Rodri as the reference, which is bad because Rodri's the best player in world football, in my opinion. But you need a bloke. And Liverpool have almost made Gravenberch that this year, right?
Yep.
Chelsea have got Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez that kind of do a little bit of that. You've got to have one. You've got to have one, and not one of ours is a defensive midfielder. I don't want to hear that Bentancur is. I don't. Basuma's not. Star is not. We need an out-and-out guy, Sean, who up there senses danger.
Yeah. 100%.
Up there, not putting out fires, senses it before it's a fire.
Yep.
I want him putting out the matches, if you know what I mean. I want. You know,
he's not the fire extinguisher; he's the fire alarm.
Mate,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I remember watching Palhinha at Fulham, just thinking, you make it look really easy. He made it look really simple. And I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, that Bayern Munich haven't played him more. But, hey, they've won the league. And what can you say?
They've just signed Josh Kimmich on a new 5-year deal, haven't they, as well? So, like, he's going to stay there for the rest of his career. So,
yeah.
You know,
but,
no
again, that's the sort of player. If it is Paratici coming back, I want to see Paratici go and land that player, even if it's on loan. Go and land that footballer that makes me go, I'm looking forward to next season. Or I believe in that signing. Because,
100%.
Sean, if you asked 100 Spurs fans, I'll tell you what, there's 458 Spurs fans, I'm guessing, in the chat right now, maybe a few that don't. Is any Spurs fan out there, let us know in the chat, is anyone saying no if offered Palhinha to go into our midfield for next season? Would anyone have anything they don't like about him? Because I think that is a player that will unite the fan base. That we all go, great signing.
I wonder whether Daniel Levy is going to be on board. I mean, how much did Bayern Munich pay for him? Was it like 70 million or something? They paid a lot of money, didn't they, for him?
Let's have a look. Here you go. Transfer, international career. Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich on a 4-year deal for 51 million euros plus 5 million add-ons. So 50. Hang on. Here we go.
50 million quid, basically, right?
56 million euros in pounds. So 47 million for a player of that ilk. DM. I mean,
a year older, you can knock off. So that's you amortize 25% of a 4-year contract. So 40 million quid, which is about what that we're owed by. That's the Matisse Tell deal, isn't it?
Right. But again, when you look at how much we paid for Archie Gray, right? When you're looking at what you paid for Archie Gray, I know that's a prospect, but an expensive one. If now you add 15 million extra on top, you've got Palhinha. That's what I want to see us do now.
Daniel Levy needs to start thinking about, I understand why he pivoted to a youth-centric approach, because you buy the best, and I think to a degree that you obviously take some punts and you get some right, some wrong, or whatever. We'll find out where that lands, but for the most part, you're probably going to get some resale value. You're not going to get any resale value on Palhinha if you keep him for 3 years. He's 33. He's not going to. But at the same time, what Daniel Levy needs to start factoring into his resale value, or the way that he kind of calculates in his mind the value of a player, is how much does that 15 points add to your revenue at the end of the season by qualifying for Europe, right? So there's backdoor ways to add value to those players. Obviously, if you have to factor in the risk of whether there's going to be injuries and stuff. But just generally speaking, I don't care what manager you have. Every single manager that comes in, apart from Ange, should look at that squad and go, I need a 6. And of all the 6s out there, there's not many that are better than Palhinha. And his age is not a factor really for his style, because like you said correctly, he just sits. Like he's not, at the end of the season, you're probably going to look at him and he's going to have run 50% of the yards that Pedro Porro is going to have run. But that's okay, because I don't need him to be bombing up the pitch. I just need him to sit and tight and be protective, and then just dictate the play like a kind of be a tempo master, right? Be the conductor, and that's fine.
And that's the frustrating thing with Ange and his tactics. I truly believe if Ange believed in a number 6, an out and out 6, not not a let me shoehorn someone in there, an out and out number 6. I think you can then let your wing backs go a bit higher, and you can then not worry that you're going to get caught on the transition as much. And that's the frustrating thing for me. He's had 17 new signings, I believe, 16, 17 new signings, and not one of them has been a defensive midfielder. And I'm not hearing Archie Gray as a DM yet. I'm going to park that until not one of them has been an out and out. I feel like all we've done is buy sort of wide forwards and defenders. I feel like we've not bought any midfielders really in his tenure. Somebody here said you could say that about Wharton, Edison, a few more. Yeah, I think the problem you're going to have with a player like Wharton now is Crystal Palace, who don't need to sell, are going to go, yeah, you want Wharton? Yeah, we'll take 100 million.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he's worth that, but they can command that because he's English in the England squad and is going to be sought after if available in the market. You've got to pick up a Wharton before he becomes this Wharton, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so an Edison, I think, is going to have a lot of suitors. I think he's going to have a lot of.
He's not been as good this season, Edison, as he was last season when he was in the Atlanta team that won the Europa League. He was incredible, but this season he's Atalanta have as well a little bit, haven't they? They're not quite as. I guess maybe it's like a hangover from their season before when they did brilliant things. I'd love to ask you: do you have much of a stance on players like? We're talking about trying to find them before they become the guy. Hayden Hackney or Joe Bellingham. There's links out to both of those guys again today. And would you take a punt on those guys? But they're not going to be cheap. They're going to be like, Archie Gray.
This is the difficulty,
there, didn't they?
This is the difficulty. Where we've acted in a certain way for the last 2-3 years in the transfer market, we've already got Gray, we've already got Sarr, we've already got Bergvall. I think we're at the point where I don't need another hit and hope. The next one that comes in needs to be a Palhinha. It needs to be boom. I think if you can pick up your Hayden Hackneys, and I know this isn't going to happen, so don't laugh at me. If someone turns around and goes, right, 9 million, you go, yeah, I'll take that punt because you know what? I'm going to be able to sell him for that. For example, today, Brighton signed another player, right? A Brazilian winger. It was 7. Hang on, let me find it. Here we go. And because I remember messaging everyone going, this is what you call a punt. Hang on, where is it? So Brighton are close to signing a deal to sign left-sided player Quibano from Botafogo. They've had 2 offers turned down so far at 5 million and 2 million and 5 million, 3 million. But they will probably land their man, is what's saying here. Right? 22 years old, Brazilian. Those are the punts.
You just know that if Brighton have found him, you just know he's going to be a rock star, don't you?
But Sean, if you're going in at 5+3 or 8+2, those sort of deals, you go, knock yourself out, Tottenham, i.e. Bergvall. When we're talking about Hayden Hackney, how much do you want, Middlesbrough? You want 35 million.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you look at Liverpool.
So on that basis, then, you don't take the punt on young English players. You take the punt on foreign.
Not at that massive fee, because we've done it with Archie Gray. And for me, I think if you turn around and you go, Archie Gray was what, depending on which source you believe, was what, 40 million or 30 million or whatever you believe, right? I want better than what we got at that age for that sort of money. If I'm taking a punt on an 18-year-old, I want it to be Spurs have had their window. We've signed these 4 or 5 first-team players, and we've got this kid here for 10 million. Loan him out. We don't need to worry about him.
Like a Alejo Liz, but one that actually turns out to be okay, sort of thing.
Right. But don't be putting 25 to 40 million on an 18-year-old that, no offense, he's not ready for he's not a ready-made Premier League centre midfielder. And that is where I do have frustrations with Tottenham that, are we saying across the whole of Europe there wasn't a ready-made central midfielder? Manu Kone, who went to Roma, cheaper, and he's not on the same wages.
Ephraim Thuram is another one, right?
Thuram, right? Yeah. Fofana, who went to Milan. They all went cheaper than Archie Gray.
Mm-hmm.
They're all about 22, 23. And I'm thinking, get one of them in, put him straight in the first team. Don't need Gray. We had Bergvall. You've got Bergvall.
The other 2 that we missed out on, Mats Wiefer. I was waxing lyrical about him. He ended up going to Brighton. He'll become a brilliant player. And the other one was Arthur Vermeeren, who was over in Belgium. I think he was at...
Did he go to Atletico and now he's out on loan?
Yeah. But you just wait and see. That kid's gonna. But like that wasn't going to cost. I don't know how much he ended up going for, but it certainly wasn't what the Premier League would have paid for him. But there's loads of these players, mate. Bruges, you've got a couple of absolute like worldies down in. Like you. I mean, not this is we're talking about DMs here, but like you picked up on that kid.
Is it Taby, the right winger?
Yeah. I mean, like I don't know how much will he cost? He's not going to break the bank, is he? So. Maybe
well, the thing is, if he was coming from Middlesbrough or Blackburn, he's going to cost you 25-30 million. I think getting him from Club Bruges,
passport, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But you're right, Sean. I think with good scouting, if Daniel Levy, if any chairman turned around and said, right, I want you to go and scout the whole of Europe, the whole of world football, South America, whatever, and I want you to find me 2 brilliant young players that are going to be 30 million between them. I'm sorry, but you're not coming back with Archie Gray. You're not. I feel like it was lazy. I feel that, and again, Lubo has a go at me all the time because he goes, "Oh, he will be good," and I'm like, "That's great, but will be good at 30 to 40 million is a." He's like the 5th or 6th most expensive teenager of all time.
You're pricing in like serious levels of perfection. It's like when Brighton signed Evan Ferguson. And he had half a good year, or one good year, got injured, and then they were asking for 100 million quid. And like people at Tottenham Tottenham fans were saying, "Go for it. He's going to be a worldie." He hasn't been, obviously, right? He's ended up falling off a cliff. I'll tell you, it's a good example. One player that I am excited about is that Mason Melia that we got from St. Patrick, right? We pay £1 million for him, £1.5 million for him, and he looks like he could be something that could end up being a decent either a money spinner or just a good player. Like he looks like
$1 million
big lad for £1 million. Yeah, to do that all day long. It's like when you're betting on the golf, million. Right? Like you want to put if you've got £100 in bets to put on, and back in the day you'd put 60 quid on Tiger Woods and 20 quid on Rory McIlroy, but you save yourself 20 quid back to have a couple of quid on some 80-1 outsiders just in case that they have a worldie and come in. That's what you need to have some spray and plays with some like £1 or £2 million punts around the game and see what comes of it. But I remember watching back on a video I did last summer, and it was just before we signed Archie Gray, and I remember on the video I said like I really like this guy. From what I've seen of him, he looks like a real handful for someone so young. But fucking hell, like £40 million for a player that's got no Premier League experience. Like, that is wildly over the top. No one else would pay that much money. Nobody else.
But this is it, Sean. When people are saying to me, like, oh, you're writing off young players. First of all, I've not written him off. I think it's the opposite. I think what's the opposite to writing them off? I think people put them on a pedestal too quick. Like, I had loads of people going, do you see what Archie Gray did against Chelsea in the FA Cup? And you're like, right, okay, but I don't want 40 million of my transfer budget because you've seen a player have a man of the match performance.
Yeah.
40 million, that's a first team player. That should be someone that you go bang straight in our midfield. And what made it worse for me?
8 years ago, 40 million quid got you like a top 10 player in the world, by the way, in a certain position,
But what made it worse for me, Sean?
£40 million was a lot of money.
What made it worse for me was last January, not the one just gone, the one before, we'd already signed Bergvall. We knew Bergvall was coming. So Spurs knew we had an 18-year-old midfielder coming. Surely you go, right, let's develop that one. But we went and got another one. And then we're going, oh, he hasn't had a chance in midfield. Well, I'm not being funny. No matter what people tell me about Basuma and Bentancur and blah, 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 they're better than Archie Gray in central midfield. You're not going to go, oh, Basuma, you're on the bench. Archie, you go.
That's the argument I always make, Ray. I make the same argument about Mikey Moore. I think people have a positivity bias. I'm not writing him off. People think, oh, you hate Mikey Moore. What? No, I don't. I hope he's going to be I think he will be a sensational player, whether it's at Tottenham or otherwise. I'm sure he'll go on to brilliant things, right? Like, if he keeps his feet on the ground, I'm sure he'll go on to sensational things. I just say, if the argument is, if you're good enough, you're old enough, then if you're good enough, you need to be judged against everybody else that's in the squad, whether they're 17 or 27. And if Archie Gray is good enough to be in there, then he needs to be compared to Bissouma and Bentancur. And right now, Archie Gray is bottom of that list. I'm sorry, like he's not at least in form in the 6th role. He's the bottom of that particular list. And the same with Mikey Moore. it's not the gap isn't as big because no one's really excelled in that world. But if Mikey Moore's good enough, just because he's one of our own, doesn't mean that he gets a free ride. And I think that he hasn't done anything that's that remarkable to make everybody so like determined to see him ahead of, Odebear, Tell, Sonny, whoever else. I just think I'm sure he'll get his chance. I'm sure he'll take it with both hands. I'm not in any way calling him, an unimpressive player. I just don't think he's quite ready yet. But then you can make the same argument for some of the others as well.
I think half the problem is everyone thinks that every teenager is going to develop into a top class player. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen. I've worked in youth football. It doesn't happen. And quite often, the player that is the standout academy player isn't always the player that you go, I knew it. You watch Stephen Corker yesterday on, I actually saw this post on LinkedIn, believe it or not. Stephen Corker on LinkedIn was talking about Harry Kane. And he said, believe it or not, he said he wasn't the best player in our youth academy. He said he probably wasn't even in the best 5. He said he had belief, work rate, attitude that made him power and He said there were better footballers than him that have had careers nowhere near Kane's. But every football fan, this word pisses me off, Sean. Ceiling. He's got a better ceiling than him. How the fuck do you know? How do you like? If we're talking about Yamal, yeah, that boy's ceiling is whatever. But when people are going, oh, Archie Gray's ceiling, okay, cool. Based on what? You don't know him. You don't train with him. What are you basing it on? Right?
Yeah, the price tag, the fact that he comes from a decent family of footballers, and the fact that he plays for Tottenham. That's about it.
Mate, this is the thing, the price tag. If Archie Gray had been signed for £5 million from Leeds, we'd all go, oh, we signed some kid for Leeds, shove him out. And you know what? His name would not have been mentioned once on any YouTube channel for a year. But we didn't. He was our midfield signing in the summer. Everyone, again, me and Lubo debate this every day. He's like, oh, he's really good. Trust me. And I'm like, yeah, but my eyes are showing me that he's not what you're telling me he is. Could he be in 3 years? Sure. But couldn't you say that of any 18-year-old in any academy? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Be amazing, right?
100%. 100%.
It's crazy how much we want. I get it. We want the young players to be amazing. But let's be honest, right? If you look at our academy in the last 30 years, right? In the last 30 years since the Premier League started, we've had 3 that have gone on to be mega successes. I'm not saying we've only developed 3, but Sol Campbell, Ledley King, and Harry Kane have been the 3 where you go world class.
Yeah.
We've developed some other players that have played maybe 30 first team games, 40, and then, the likes of Andros Townsend, Ryan Mason, Jake Livermore, Stephen Corker, all of these. But we seem to think that
including Ryan Cherky in that list.
I like Ryan Cherky.
Did he come through our youth? I think he came through our youth system, didn't he?
Ryan Cherky?
I'm pretty sure Ryan Cherky was part of our youth academy.
No, was he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was.
Hang on, I'm going to have a look. Do you know what? I think there's a lot of talk about his attitude, but as a footballer, he's progressive. He drives with the ball. He's skillful. He's my type of player to watch. Cherky is a product of Lyon. No, apparently he was at St. Priest and then Lyon.
Oh, hang on. I'm sure I read it somewhere. Come through Tottenham.
But it goes to show, doesn't it? We've got to stop thinking that every single kid that plays is going to be the next Harry Kane or Gareth Bale. It's so rare. It's so rare that they actually go on to do that. And that's where we're at. That's where we're at.
Did you take Ryan Cherky? £20 million?
Right. Damn right.
Yeah.
Damn right. Exciting. I like a bit of attitude. I know people are going bad at. I think we need some people that aren't nice in this squad. I think everyone's lovely. All the little handshakes, playing 100%. Uno.
I agree on that. I think that we've got all these young players. We have who's our elder statesman is Sonny, right? Who's 30 years old, whatever, 31. He's the most playful 31-year-old I've ever met. He's like he feels. I feel like I feel like he just feels like he's about 16 years old. Wants to play FIFA and have a mate, laugh and joke, and I don't think that there's that kind of well, I'm not sure how to describe it. That kind of tenacity. I'm not taking it away from him as a player, but in terms of mentoring, I don't know necessarily if it's. Imagine if you had. I think we spoke this the other day, mate. Like, imagine if you had Ivan Perisic in the ranks right now, and what some of the wingers could learn off of Ivan Perisic. Just an absolute beast of a professional. Just an absolute unit of a guy that just eats well, lives well, trains well, still knows how to that cadence of his step overs. That he wasn't that quick, but the fact of the matter is that his feet were just. It was like you'd almost get hypnotized by the step overs until he suddenly dropped his shoulder and then cut in one way or the other. That sort of stuff you can pass that stuff on. I don't know if Sonny's the sort of guy that's going to really disseminate that information, that experience over to some of the young guys. And we need some elder players that can mentor some of these guys. It's back to Palhinha.
Okay, so again, let's relate this back, Sean, to something the manager said. The manager was asked, wasn't he, after the Brighton game, if we remember the game where he said we didn't deserve a point, so he didn't make substitutions, which infuriated me. It's literally your job to make sure we get points. He was asked about leadership, and he said, again, verbatim, not word for word, but it was, he said, there are two ways to get leadership. You can either acquire it, i.e. sign it, or you can develop it from within. And I believe in the second way, developing it. Now, that is a real worry for me, that he has looked at this squad over 2 years and not gone, you know what? I need a couple of 30-year-olds that have been there and seen it and done it. Like when Brighton went and got James Milner. I'm not saying get James Milner. Perfect
example. Example.
Gareth Barry did it for years when he was older. Everton, Ashley Young. I know what, have these people around the squad that are ultimate professionals, fit, hungry, first on the training ground. You can imagine someone like Ashley Young. Spurs, we're going, no, let's buy Gray, Bergvall, Odegaard, Yang, and it's like, okay, so who are they learning off? Like, what are they? How are they developing? You've got a manager that doesn't coach, and you've got no senior pros to develop them in their positions. You've got no DM. Who is Archie Gray learning from?
Yeah. 100%.
It's madness. It's madness for me.
Even is Bissouma the kind of for what it's worth? I was like, see you later, Bissouma. Until I saw his post-match interview after the Bodo game, and he was the first player this season that's come out and spoken positively about our fans. Right? He said, the interviewer said, "Oh, congratulations, you're in the final. How does it feel?" And he said, "Yeah, I just want to say massive shout out to the fans. These guys deserve this. They're traveling around the manager doesn't do it. The other players don't do it. It's all me, roadrunner stuff." He took the time to say how important this is for the fans, and it shouldn't even be that shell shocking to hear it, that you go, oh wow, because it should be a matter of course, right? But it wasn't. It's such a rare and scarce thing to hear from Tottenham players to actually remember that we're on your side, we're not against you. That I sort of stood back and went, he's a legend for saying that interview the way he did, because it's so rare and few and far between. But do I think that he's the guy to impart, all that to one side? Do I think he's good enough? Not really. No, I don't. In fact, do I think he's the sort of guy that's he's smoking balloons or whatever you call it, right? Puffing balloons or whatever. He's not professional either. Tottenham need very few added elements alongside a manager and a coaching staff. And by the way, Savva, I've been meaning to say this on the last 4 days that I've been streaming, and I've forgotten every time. One of the biggest changes that has to happen this summer is Matty Wells and Ryan Mason have to go.
For sure.
They have to go, mate. They're part of the furniture. What are we doing here? We need new, fresh blood. We need a manager that comes in and brings their team with them so that they can feel comfortable with their environment, and that it doesn't have to be this. The right hand has to explain to the left hand what the left foot's doing. It's a frustration that Ange has got his specific way of playing and goes, I'll just take whatever you give me. I'll explain it to them. They can explain it to the players. It's ridiculous. It's like Chinese whispers.
Who does Poch take everywhere he goes? Who does Poch take?
I forget the guy's name.
Is it Jesus Perez is his name?
Something? Yeah.
Look, I can't agree with you more. For me, do you know what I want to see? fair play to Ryan Mason. I think he's done really well after, obviously the really bad injury that ruined his career, doing his coaching badge. Fair play for the work he's done. I want to see Ryan, go and take a job. Go and take a job in League One, League Two. I don't care what league it is. Prove yourself. Go and prove yourself. Come back in 10 years when you are a top manager and we'll go, oh, Ryan Mason's gone and developed. But you can't have Matty Wells and Ryan Mason taking the training sessions and then we're all going, why aren't players improving?
Ryan Mason's only at the club because he broke his brain or whatever it was, and then he got recovered. He did his coaching badges, and he's sort of gone through the system. And Matty Wells, he's just it's nepotism, right? His dad was a part of the club years ago or whatever. Again, no disrespect to them, but go and earn your stripes. I think West Brom are after Ryan Mason. I think that would be a really good appointment. Go and see what you can do in the Championship. And then we'll see you in 5 years or whatever, or 10 years. And if you're good enough, then maybe we can rekindle it later. But I need a manager to come in that knows what he's doing and that's more tactically, curious, about doing things differently. A little bit more just flexible, adaptable, whatever. And then I need to see coaching staff that guy's familiar with, that they know the system. It's like a template. They can just go, all right, Tottenham, this is what we're doing. Get at it. You need to see a couple of leaders coming in key positions. You need a leader in a 6. If Romero goes, you're going to have to replace him with someone that's a ball-playing centre-back to be able to, if you do go to a back 3, you're going to need someone who can pass the ball as well, or nearly as well as Romero, but less of the bozo gene. And then you just need, a striker or a versatile forward, and then a left back or whatever. And I'm like, I don't really think the squad needs that much. It just needs,
I agree,
to be a well-oiled machine more than it has been. And it's not that.
All I want to see in the summer, depending on outgoings, is I want to see 4 first-team players come. And I want those 4 first-team players to be better than the players they are taking the place of. I don't want squad players, right? Yeah. The way a squad should work is you bring in 4, let's just say it's 4. You bring in 4 players who are better than you got. 4 that are there at the moment drop down as squad players, and the 4 that are below them, sorry, you're surplus to requirements. See you later. That's how good clubs build. That's how top clubs build. By the way, Dan Bowers, and I've got a super chat in a minute as well. Dan Bowers, for me, I would go and get Xavi Hernandez and say, any chance you can have a word with...
There's someone at my door. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Go for it. I'll tell you, I'll come back to this in a minute because I'm going to ask Sean about it. I'll come back to this comment if that's all right, Dan, because I really do like that comment. Big up to George, who has gifted 2 Football Heritage TV memberships. There they are, 2 Football Heritage TV memberships. Thank you very much, George. Really appreciate you. Guys and girls, if George can give away free memberships, surely you can smash the like button. There's over 450 of you in it and 164 likes. Can we please get that up to 250 as a minimum? Come on, people. That would be much appreciated. And also, big up to my man, Blaine Dev. Thank you, Blaine. Always very, very generous. I said, evening, lads. Hope you're both good. Peeps, smash those likes. There you go. Smash those likes. Sean, seeing you love a conspiracy. I'll get Sean to answer this in a minute when he comes back. Says, Sean, seeing as you love a conspiracy, do you think Ange is feeding lies to our mole to make it look like Bergvall won't be fit? Or am I mad? Sean, would you like to answer, Blaine? Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting conspiracy. Big up, Blaine. Good to see you, mate. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Love you, man. Do I think the mole... I'm still trying to figure out who the mole is. I'm not sure. Did we ever find out? Did we know? He said he thinks he knows, doesn't he? He said he thought he knew, but there's no one left the club yet. So maybe Sonny. Sabotage.
Stanley's just lost his tooth, his first tooth. Oh, bless him.
Oh,
bless him.
Yeah, I think. Well, look, I don't think that Bergvall's going to be fit, mate. If I'm entirely honest, and I don't want him to be 50% fit either. As we said at the start of the show, right, the worst thing you could do is to double down on an injury of a young player because he's going to be so important next year and in years to come. So, I'd rather just give him a pat on the head and say, like Stanley, and say, "Good boy." But this time,
good boy.
Yeah, stay in your bed.
Blaine, thank you very much. And again, as I said, if Blaine can stick in 20 quid, you lot can hit a like button. Like it's really simple. Please smash that like button. Please subscribe to Sean. Please subscribe to myself as well. Let's see. I bet you I've had no subscribers tonight. You lot have been tough crowd today. Yeah, I've gone up one and back
just
down
turn on
one.
subscriber mode. Just turn on subscriber mode, mate.
It is on subscriber mode. Big up to you, Blaine. I'm going to go back to this comment. Do you know what, Dan? I agree. For me, I'd be looking at a player. I'd be looking at a manager like Xavi, and I'd say, Xavi, you've played in the Spanish national team with Koke. Can you please go and get him on a year? Give him a year contract, a 2-year contract. He's 33, experienced as you like. This is a serial winning player that's played for Atletico Madrid, Spain. That's the sort of winning mentality, leader, experienced pro, doesn't have to play every week. But imagine Bergvall in training with Koke week in, week out. Imagine Gray, Sarr, they would pick up so much. So I completely agree with you, Dan. He's on a free transfer. Another player I did see was on a free, but I think he might have signed a new contract, is Anguissa of Napoli.
Yeah, I did a video on him. I think Anguissa's I'll bring up the list, mate, if you want to share the screen here.
I think he is perfect for me, Anguissa. I think he's got
a quality
everything
player.
You need.
Beast. Brilliant player.
Oh,
you got it?
Yeah. I'll take Trent, Kevin De Bruyne.
Let me zoom in a little bit for you. Here we go.
Yeah. Look,
so Jonathan David, it looks like Jonathan David's going to Napoli. But you know what? From what I read this morning, he wants £15 million signing fee, and the agent wants 10 million, and then he wants £15 million. Yeah, and then £15 million a year in wages, which is 300 grand, right?
It's not a free transfer, is it?
Well, it's not a free transfer, right? But if you just, even if you say, like, how much would he be, right? A guy who's banged in the goals to the level that he has, 25 goals a season, give or take, for the last 4 or 5 years at every level. You'd think if he had 3 years left on his contract at 25 years old, you'd think he'd be going for like 75 million. Is that fair? 70 million, something like that? Like, he's not top draw. He's not like, Alex Isak level. He's not, he's not Gyökeres level, but he's like the sort of tier below. So maybe 65 million quid, something like that. Is that fair?
Possibly.
If he had 3 years left on his contract, and then he's still going to want, like, on a normal world, he's going to want 150 grand a week, for example. So say you signed him on a 4-year deal, that's £7.5 million a year in wages, give or take. Then that over 4 years would be 30 million quid. And then the other, 60 million. So it's a 90 million pound contract for a player that if you signed him in an otherwise alternative world where he was in the middle of his contract, if he wants 35, him and his agent want 35 million quid, 25 million pound in signing fees, and then 300 grand a week, which is 15 million pound a year on a 4-year deal. That's the same sort of money. That's 85 million quid. So it's like, I know it sounds like ridiculous, but actually it's cheaper than what you
it's all relative.
It's all relative, right?
It's all. I mean, I've just looked at his stats as well, and again, people are talking about the French league, but look, I mean, he's got 146
Champions
goals,
League,
146 goals in 314 games, and he's got 109 in 231 for Lille. So he's just under 1 every 2. I mean, listen, Trent, we know he's gone. Jonathan David, I would take, because I think he's a goal scorer more than what we've got.
Yeah.
I can't imagine Leroy Sane. I think he's going to have bigger fish to fry. I just got a feeling he's going to have bigger fish to fry.
Chelsea are interested in him, even though he doesn't. I don't know why Chelsea need any wingers, but they're apparently interested. Jonah Tah's going to Bayern. De Bruyne's going to Napoli.
Yeah, forget
that. Tyrick Mitchell's not actually on the list. Like, for whatever reason, they haven't announced he's got a contract for 2 more years till 27.
Right.
He's a good player. Postecoglou.
Yeah, I don't mind Postecoglou. I don't mind him. But again, it's, a sensible signing. I don't really want Angel Gomez.
I don't want him either.
I think he's a good footballer, but he's not. I feel like we need some.
He's a jack of all trades, I think. I need someone who's more just a specific, and I don't know why they're calling him an attacking midfielder, because I always think of him more as like an 8/6. But according to Transfer Market, he's played more games for Lille as an attacking midfielder. I wasn't aware of that, but I certainly don't want a player that's box to box or like an everything. I need a midfielder that does one or two things very well, not everything okay. He's also too small.
I do not want Calvert-Lewin.
I'll go if we sign him. I'm Levy out, mate. Clip that. If we get that bozo, I am Levy out. I don't want to go near him in a heartbeat. I do quite
like the look of the bloke who's it looks a little bit like me, right winger, 37 years of age. I quite like the look of him. He'd
yeah. Where do you reckon he'll go to?
Wherever he bloody wants. If I was him, I'd go back to Barcelona. If I'm him, I'm going back to Barcelona and playing a little bit part, coaching. If I'm him, but he can go wherever he wants. He's Lionel Messi, right?
Yeah. Do you think he go to Saudi?
See, I don't see him as that type of player.
He's already a billionaire, isn't he? It's like he doesn't need any.
I don't see him as that. I wouldn't. I'm going to sound like an idiot here. I miss him. I miss watching him on European TV week in, week out.
Yeah, I hear that.
But yeah.
Would you say Ole Einar? Ola Einar, rather.
Yeah, I would, but I've got a feeling he's another one that I think he's had a really good year, and I think he's going to have some suitors.
Yeah.
Kyle
Walker
Kenny Tete.
I like Kenny Tete. I think Kenny Tete is awesome. I don't know. People think I'm mad. I think he's solid. He's balanced. You know, he can get forward. He's got an engine on him. He's experienced. I don't know what there is to dislike about Kenny Tete. I think a lot of Fulham's best moves come down their right, basically all of their best moves come down their right and their left, and he creates so much width in the overlap. He's not going to suit an Ange system if they want him to invert. But again, I'm not. This isn't based on an Ange model. This is based on whatever's next.
Hang on, mate. Hang on. Not this. Finn, when you're saying Koke will get bossed in the Premiership, this is a man that's played central midfield for years and years and years for Diego Simeone. I truly don't believe that he's going to be worried about playing in the Premier League in any way, shape, or form. Let's not do that. I hate this notion that these players that have played at the very top level suddenly they'll come to the Premier League and he wouldn't be able to play. But people are going to tell me the likes of Bentancur, Bergvall, you know what I mean? Like, come on, let's not do that. Look, there's players about. There's players about.
Patalic's quality.
Yeah, he's quite good. But again, it's, is this something we would do? I just don't think it is. But I want to direct some football.
That player that you mentioned, he's disappeared off the list. The guy who plays in Italy.
Anguissa.
Yeah, he's obviously signed. He's obviously signed a new contract. He's come off the list. So interesting.
Yeah, I again, but we've got people that say, look, I wouldn't sign him. Like, I mean, I can't believe anyone's looking at our midfield, looking at Anguissa and going, he doesn't get in our midfield. I mean, this is absolutely mad. Anguissa's of everything right about a central midfielder for the Premier League is Anguissa. Strong, powerful, quick, good in the tackle, loves driving forward with the ball. And this is our, unfortunately, Sean, when I say this is our fan base, look at the number of players we say we wouldn't want. I heard this about Sander Berge in the summer. I'd love Sander Berge. Solid.
Sander Berge's quality.
But Alex, I don't get it, mate. I just don't get it how you're saying that. Big up to you, my man. Hope you're well. But listen, he walks into the team for me. He walks in. Anyway, listen, we are going to leave it there. Just quickly, one comment I did start earlier is, guys, let's say we win next Wednesday and Ange leaves the week after. At that point, what would you score? Would you give the season out of 10? Sean, you can go first. So if we win the Europa League but Ange leaves.
It's a season out of 10. I personally think it's been I've hated every minute of this season. It's been so exhausting. But listen, if you win the league, if you win the Cup, Europa League, I mean, we've only won 1 or 2 European trophies in 130 years or whatever it is. So I think you'd have to get, as a one-off season, I'll tolerate it and give it a 6.5 or something because of the success. But it's an asterisk. I don't care how you say it. Like that trophy needs an asterisk on it so that Tottenham fans never forget what happened in the Premier League this season. Like, we'll in 20 years' time, we'll be like, yeah, do you remember lifting the cup in 25? Yeah. Do you remember what else happened that year? Like, I think we need that. There needs to be an asterisk on that on our record books, because
I'll rank it in two ways. I'll say, well, in the Europa League it was a 10 out of 10, but in the Premier League it was a 0 out of 10. So look, we'll average it out at 5 in the middle. Look, I know that people say, oh, he'll be a winner. I get it. Yeah. I get it. But
difference between best and most successful, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, with that in mind, by the way, Alex, no, I wasn't disagreeing with the sake of it. Sean and I weren't talking about Lobotka. We were talking about players that were on the free transfer list. We were saying if Anguissa was on there, I mean, you wouldn't turn him down. I just fail to believe there's any Spurs fan that looks at our midfield now and goes, yeah, he wouldn't get in it. And we made this mistake last year. Any midfielder that was mentioned last year, but he doesn't get in above Bentancur and Basuma and Sarr. People like Locatelli, he wouldn't get in. Cool. Mano Kone, he wouldn't get cool. Then when the season starts, we're all going, our midfield's weak. Yeah. Who would have thought?
True.
Sean, thank you very much. Listen, everybody in the chat, much love. Really appreciate you. Really enjoyed the show, Sean.
Same, mate. Yeah, enjoyed it.
And listen, join me tomorrow, guys. I'll have my morning show, and then in the evening we'll have a watch along for our sins for Aston Villa versus Tottenham. Sean, score prediction quickly. I don't even want to predict what I'm going to predict.
3-0 Villa, 4-0 Villa, something like that.
Yeah, I'm genuinely worried.
All I care about, mate, is getting out without any injuries. That's all I give a shit about. No more injuries, please.
Yeah, fair enough.
Please.
Fair enough. Guys, girls, take care. I'll see you tomorrow. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Bye.